So, looks like we've made it through a storm in the Gulf. We're not home yet, but I've got a little time, so I thought I'd do a Q&A video. I've had people ask me off and on what's going on and how we're doing things, so I thought I'd go ahead and just do a video and answer some questions. So let's get started. Why is the channel called Roads of Life? Well, the short answer is I have a quote. If the roads of life were a straight path, we'd all fall asleep at the wheel. But what does that mean? Driving on a straight road is easy. No distractions, you can sail right through, but it gets boring, and sooner or later, you start nodding off, and that can be disastrous. The straight path, the one with no deviation, no side trips, no variety, has no life to it. Nothing to see, nothing to do. We just want to get it over with. Slowing down and being present in the moment, that's what gives the trip meaning, and it's what gives life meaning, which is what I'm really talking about. Without those deviations in life, those struggles and accomplishments, well, we just become nothing but sleepwalkers. We never experience the joys and the hardships that really make life worthwhile. And sleeping through life is no life at all. What are you going to do with an RV? Well, we're not going to live in it. Nothing wrong with living in one, if that's your dream. But for us, an RV is for recreation, not homesteading. That's why I usually say RV instead of motorhome. Our plans include, traveling the USA.
See the USA in your Chevrolet.
And Canada.
Oh,
Canada. Visiting small towns and out of the way places. We are less interested in the hiking and biking kind of aspects that a lot of people are into. We're more into visiting historic sites, museums, strange oddities, like the biggest ball of twine. No, I don't know why. We're just weird that way. Oddly enough, there's a debate raging about who has the biggest ball of twine. Guess everyone is weird that way. Is the RV going to be your main driving vehicle or just a secondary vehicle? Well, that depends on what you mean by secondary. If you mean we park it all the time until we go on a trip, no. We've always been a two-car family, so the RV is just going to replace one of the cars. That way, if one of us is using the car, then we'll just use the RV for a second car. That's one of the main reasons why we're limiting our search to Class Bs, just easier to drive around town. Why haven't you bought an RV? That is really the $100,000 question. There are more reasons than I can count, but the main reason is economics. Our daughter is starting college, and of course, she chose a private one. So we need to determine the real expenses before we sink money into an RV. It's easy to determine tuition, but there are so many other expenses that are variable, and we really need to get a handle on that before we buy. And before you say, just get a 20-year loan, go look at my loan videos. That is not an option. Then there are work commitments. My wife works part-time online, and I have a full-time job online. Mine is a scheduled 8-hour day. It's online, but not very flexible. Working that much online means having a really good internet connection all the time, and honestly, there isn't that kind of reliability on the road. Case in point, my wife works for a healthcare tech services company, so they have a really high standard for security, and she pretty much couldn't get connected the entire time we've been traveling. Since that's the case, if we stay at home most of the time because of internet and security issues, we don't see the point of owning an RV. We can only use a couple of weeks out of the year during vacation time. It's just not economically practical. And one final thing, we still debate the merits of buying used or buying new. You might have seen my previous video on the subject, but maybe I'll do more on that later. Are you going to buy an RV? Well, we don't lock ourselves in one way of travel. I know this channel has always talked about RVs, and there's even one on the channel icon. But the channel is really about our lives, and all kinds of travel are an important part of that. We still plan on visiting Europe at some point before we get too old, and that costs money. And it's really hard to get an RV on a plane. But that said, we really want to see the US and Canada, which I've never actually seen in any real sense. A lot of you could probably relate to those family vacations when you were young, where your dad drove all day, and when you got to wherever you were going, you were stuck in the hotel because your dad was tired because he was driving all day. And that's how I saw the US, one hotel after another. Tourist sites were few and far between, and even those were seen quickly so we could get to the next tourist trap. It was more about how much stuff you could cram into 2 weeks than it was about the experience itself. So it's really important to us to be able to stay and really see an area and not just fly by. The RV seems to be the best solution for that kind of travel. We look at it this way. We just had some very bad weather where we live and decided to get out of town for a week. We took the dog, we took our daughter, so we got a 2-bedroom place with a kitchen. And that ran well over $1,000 for the week, not including food or gas or incidentals. We had to search for a place that would allow dogs, which was really limiting where we could go. It was a pain. So an RV seems like something that can solve those kinds of issues. So in all likelihood, yes, we will probably buy an RV. It's just going to take a while. What kind of RV are you going to buy? And that's such a loaded question. I mean, no matter what we say, someone will say, wrong, wrong, wrong. We have looked at so many different models, but a Class B fits our needs. It's small enough to travel around town, but big enough for the basics for traveling. We don't have to worry about hauling a bigger rig or driving something really long, and it really fits our style of living and traveling. So I was first excited by Heimer and Roadtrek, to the point where I actually thought my search done. And then they went bankrupt. Roadtrek is back, true, but they really want a lot of money for what they give you. And not only that, I'm still not sold on how long they're going to last. I've just lost confidence in the brand. Once bitten, twice shy. I don't know. Pleasureway was my next love, and I find them really well built, but they are designed for the heat of the southern U.S. Their battery systems won't last more than a couple of hours with AC, so they kind of missed the boat on that. For our style of travel with a dog, in towns, and not necessarily, choosing cooler weather, it just isn't for us. For the price you pay, not having that kind of flexibility is kind of a deal breaker. Now, for the longest time, we've been looking at Winnebago Travato, both the KL and the GL. And we even rented a KL. We really liked it, and it's a good model, especially the National Park Edition. National Park Edition. Anyway, but again, there are some issues. It's a product made on an assembly line, but they cost upwards of $170,000. And I just can't see us paying that kind of money for something that's mass-produced. I don't know, maybe, you can haggle and bargain to get a lower price at a dealership, but geez, my time is worth money, and the aggravation just doesn't seem worth it. I'm not that good at wheeling and dealing, and if I'm going to have to start making deals, then I might as well look at used. Now, if we can find something used, that might be possible. But then, of course, the models that interest us have lithium batteries and are relatively new on the market, and there just isn't much out there that is used to choose from. So this leaves us buying something custom, but that can go upwards of 200 to 300 grand. And honestly, that's out of our league. Nothing wrong with people who have that kind of money, but we aren't one of them. So the short answer is, it's going to be a Class B, maybe new, maybe used, but not sure which one yet. So there you go, my first Q&A. I hope you liked it. Hit the thumbs up button if you did, and that other one if you didn't. It's all good. Oh, and subscribe if you like. If you have more questions, just leave them in the comments below, and if there are enough of them, maybe I'll do another Q&A. Be seeing you.